Good morning, class. Today is Tuesday, May 12th. Let's get started with some science. So, unlike the last few days, we've done a lot of labs and hands-on learning. Today is going to be more about practicing what we've been learning in those hands-on activities and applying it to the end of our oceans unit. So, we're just kind of reviewing everything that we know. Today, our assignment is going to be the hop, skip, jump. So let's go through each of these together. The hop, so my expectation is that you're doing this in your ultimate science notebook or on a spare sheet of paper. The following is a diagram that's often used to describe tides. Describe how tides happen, which areas of the earth you expect to see high tides in the diagram, and why the tide levels change. So, key thing is that when the earth is in the center, right, and here's my moon, gravity is just the pull of something smaller towards something larger. So when I drop this pen on my countertop, my pen is the small thing, the earth beneath it is the much larger thing. So that's why my pen falls down to the ground. Same thing happens with the earth and the moon, right? So the moon is the bigger thing in this case, even though the earth is much bigger. The water on that earth is still susceptible or still applies to that gravity. So the water from the moon actually pulls the earth just a little bit this way. It pulls the water on the earth a little bit this way. When the earth moves just a little bit this way, just like we saw in our interactive notebook, both this side of the earth and this side of the earth are going to experience bigger tides. That's why when you go out to the ocean, you might see that it's really wet or that there's like dead fish 100 yards back from where the water line is. And that's because that tide is constantly changing. So what's the key takeaway here? Number one, moon affects tides. Moon affects tides. Moon affects tides. Moon is very important for tides. The other thing that affects tides is really the sun and a couple other factors, but the moon is really a big one. The second thing to know about tides is that it's happening because the moon is physically acting on that earth and pulling it towards it. And so the two sides that are facing the moon and away from the moon are going to experience the biggest amount of tides. So that's our hop. Our skip says on the right diagram is deep ocean currents. Start by labeling the Gulf Stream and label 3 areas you think are colder than you'd expect or warmer than you expect based on their distance from the equator. In the lines below, describe how the ocean conveyor belt works. Be sure to describe how the water itself changes. Okay, so keep in mind, Mrs. Benavides is not a great artiste. This is my imaginary world that has no continents in it, just to kind of show how this works. So remember, ocean water is carrying heat throughout the universe or throughout the world like a giant conveyor belt. We talked about how that conveyor belt is like your groceries going at the grocery store. It's pushing things along with it. We talked about how this is in a scene in Finding Nemo when they're in the Great Atlantic Current. So let's pretend we're a stream of water and we're starting here at the equator. Hot water rises, so that's going to be pushed upward. When it gets to the poles, however, the poles are really cold. So it's going to slowly cool and then drop back down again. As it hits the equator again, it's going to move back up and so on and so forth. However, this isn't what's really happening, as we saw yesterday when we put a rock in the middle of a stream. Pretend this is our rock. So if it's falling, it might have no choice but to go all the way down here and around the continent back up to the equator. So basically what's happening is when this is coming down, this area would be colder than we expect because it's carrying that cold water from the North Pole to the continent. This area down here, even though it's kind of close to the South Pole, is going to be warmer than we'd expect because it's carrying this warm water, which it picked up from the equator, down to this part of the world. So that's basically how this is working. The Gulf Stream in particular was in a video a couple days ago, but it's that part right off the coast of Virginia in between Europe and the Americas. And so here is some answer keys. The jump for this one is super, super hard. So that's why I've included the coloring page. You need to draw a picture that represents tides, surface currents, and deep water currents. The next thing we're going to be doing is our oceans unit review. I'm not going to walk you through those because I want you to do the best to do those yourself, independently, kind of check out what you know. This will definitely prepare you for 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. I know that it's really hard to feel like any work that you're doing has any real impact. And I just want to encourage you, those of you who are working hard now will see the benefits. You will. I am 100,000,000% certain, because it's those who work hard when no one's watching that really achieve in the real world. It's those who are constantly doing the right thing who really achieve in the real world. So thank you very much for being one of those people, for working super hard. You are going to be thankful that you did. So that's our oceans unit review. Here's the answer key. I'm just going to zoom in, maybe, so that we can see. Here's the answers 1 through 5. Pause if you need them. 6 through 11. Again, feel free to pause on any of these. I've also posted this on my Google Classroom. Here's the answer key. Here's the next question. Feel free to pause if you don't have your science notebook. Here's the answer key. Here's the next question. And here's the next answer key. That last one we've already answered, so it should be super easy. Thank you so much for tuning in for Science Day, and I will see you in a little bit for Language Arts.